The morning light crept through the sheer curtains. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, her arms wrapped around her knees as she stared blankly out the large window. Her heart was heavy. She had barely slept the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, images of Michael's face in that cold police cell haunted her. Her bedroom, once full of laughter and warmth, now felt like a stranger's space. Cold, distant, empty. Clara's mind spun with a million thoughts. What if he was telling the truth? What if he wasn't? Knock on the door pulled her out of her thoughts. She blinked and looked toward it. "Come in," she said quietly. The door opened slowly, and Marilyn, one of the younger maids, stepped inside. Her hands were folded in front of her apron, and her eyes looked worried. "Good morning, ma'am," Marilyn said softly, bowing her head slightly. Clara nodded. "Morning, Marilyn. What is it?" Marilyn took a step forward, then stopped. She looked nervous, like she was unsure if she should speak. I wanted to tell you something," she said. Clara raised her eyebrows, curious. "Something? About what?" Marilyn swallowed hard. "It's about Mr. Michael, ma'am." Clara froze. Her chest tightened. She stood up slowly from the bed, suddenly alert. "Michael?" she repeated. Marilyn nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I think," but before she could finish, Clara's eyes widened in horror. Her voice cracked as she interrupted. "Did he do something to you too?" Marilyn's eyes widened in surprise. "No, ma'am, that's not—" Clara didn't let her finish. She stepped closer, her voice full of emotion. "I can't believe this. I trusted him. And now, you too? Marilyn, I treated you like family." Marilyn opened her mouth again to explain, but Clara held up her hand. "No, I don't want to hear it. Please leave." Marilyn's heart sank. She had hoped that Clara would listen, but now she could see that Clara's mind was already clouded with doubt and pain. She nodded quietly and left the room. Back in her small room in the servants' quarters, Marilyn sat on the edge of her narrow bed, staring at the floor. Her hands trembled as she tried to gather her thoughts. She knew something important, something that could change everything, but she wasn't sure if she should speak up. Would anyone believe her? Would she lose her job? Would it make things worse for Mr. Michael? She lay back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her chest. She had seen things, heard things. She had noticed how Emily always made excuses to be near Mr. Michael, how she often wore revealing clothes around the house, even late at night. Marilyn had even once caught Emily sneaking out of Michael's room, fixing her towel while Michael looked panicked and angry. She remembered the way Michael looked, confused, like he was trapped in a nightmare. And now he was in jail, facing charges he kept saying he didn't commit. Marilyn turned on her side. She couldn't sleep. Something inside her kept saying, "You have to speak up." By morning, she had made up her mind. She was going to visit Mr. Michael in the police station. Maybe he would know what to do. Maybe it was time to tell the truth, no matter what happened next. She got up from the bed, walked to the closet, and pulled out a clean shirt and jeans. Her heart raced, but her mind was steady. She would go to the station first thing in the morning. Back at the mansion, Clara hadn't left the bedroom. She didn't go down for breakfast. She barely spoke to anyone. The silence in the house was louder than words. Meanwhile, the press continued to circle like vultures outside the estate, waiting for another headline, another rumor. The neighbors whispered. The news stations repeated the same story, over and over. Billionaire businessman Michael Bennett accused of harassment by his sister-in-law. In the police holding cell, Michael sat alone, tired and frustrated. His beard had started to grow and his eyes looked dull from lack of sleep. He kept going over everything in his head. Where had he gone wrong? Why didn't he speak out earlier? And why didn't Clara believe him? His heart broke every time he thought of her. She didn't even come to see him the previous day. He leaned back against the cold wall and closed his eyes. Just then, an officer opened the door. Visitor for you, Mr. Bennett. Michael sat up quickly. Clara? The officer shook his head. No, a young woman. Says her name's Marilyn. Michael's eyebrows furrowed. Marilyn? He stood up slowly and followed the officer to the small visitation room. On the other side of the glass sat Marilyn, looking nervous but determined. As Michael picked up the phone, she did the same. Sir, she began, I think I know who's lying. Michael's heart skipped. What do you mean? Marilyn looked around, then whispered, It's Emily. I saw things, heard things. She planned all of this. Michael stared at her, shocked. Why didn't you say anything before? I tried to tell Ma'am Clara, Marilyn said, her voice trembling. But she didn't let me speak. She thought you did something to me, too. Michael looked down, then slowly nodded. She doesn't trust me anymore. But I trust you, Marilyn said. And I want to help. Michael leaned closer to the glass. Then you need to talk to someone who will listen. Marilyn nodded. I'll go to the police. I'll tell them everything. Michael smiled for the first time in days. There was still a chance. But outside the station, Emily sat in her car, watching from a distance. Marilyn took a deep breath to calm herself and started walking to the sheriff's office. Her heart was beating fast because she was both scared and determined to do the right thing. As she got close to the office, she noticed a familiar car parked nearby. It was Emily's car. Seeing the car made Marilyn panic. She didn't want Emily to see her going into the sheriff's office because that might cause more problems. Thinking quickly, Marilyn turned around, lowered her head to avoid being noticed, and walked away quickly, hoping that Emily wouldn't see her. Back at the big house, things were tense. Emily walked into the bright living room where Clara was sitting. Clara looked tired and worried because of all the recent events. Clara, Emily said in a voice that sounded sweet but had a hint of something else, I saw something interesting today. Clara looked up, her eyes showing how exhausted she felt. What is it, Emily? Well, Emily continued, sitting down across from Clara. I was near the sheriff's office this morning and saw Marilyn there. She seemed very eager to visit Michael. Clara's face showed surprise and confusion. Marilyn? At the sheriff's office? Visiting Michael? Emily nodded, pretending to be concerned. Yes, it seemed strange to me. I thought you should know. Clara felt a mix of disbelief and anger. Without saying more, she stood up and called one of the younger maids. Go and bring Marilyn here, now, she said firmly, leaving no room for questions. A few minutes later, Marilyn stood in front of Clara in the large and fancy drawing room. The room's beauty contrasted with the serious situation. Marilyn, Clara started, her voice cold and steady. Who said you could leave the estate? Marilyn's eyes widened in surprise. Ma'am, Clara raised her hand to stop Marilyn from speaking. You ignored your work to visit my husband in the police cell? To continue your secret affair with him there? Do you miss him that much? Tears filled Marilyn's eyes as she shook her head strongly. No, ma'am, it's not like that at all. Please, if you just let me explain. I don't want to hear any more, Clara interrupted, her voice full of hurt. Pack your things and leave this house first thing tomorrow morning. I won't allow such dishonesty here. Marilyn felt her heart break. She wanted to explain, but the firm look in Clara's eyes told her it was useless. Feeling defeated, she turned and walked to the servants' quarters. In her small room, Marilyn started packing her few belongings, her hand shaking. Rose, the head housekeeper, who was like a mother to the younger staff, came in, her face showing worry. Oh, Marilyn, Rose said softly, hugging her to offer comfort. What happened? Through her tears, Marilyn told Rose about what had happened that morning, her voice shaking with emotion. I only wanted to help Mr. Michael. I know he's innocent. But now Miss Clara thinks I'm having an affair with him. Rose sighed deeply, her eyes showing both sadness and frustration. This house has become full of lies and misunderstandings. And to think, with all its size and beauty, there's not a single security camera to show the truth. Marilyn stopped packing and thought for a moment. You're right. For a mansion this big and grand, it's strange. Why wouldn't Mr. Michael install security cameras? They could have shown evidence and cleared his name. Rose nodded. It's puzzling. Nowadays, security systems are common, especially in homes like this. They help prevent crime, keep an eye on things, and give peace of mind. Marylene's mind was racing. Maybe he had his reasons. Maybe he was worried about privacy, or maybe he thought the estate was safe enough without them. Rose shrugged. Whatever the reason, it's left us all in the dark now. Marilyn put down the small bag she'd been packing and stood up straight. I need to talk to Mr. Michael. I have to understand why there are no cameras. Maybe it can help in some way, together with the evidence I have. Rose squeezed her hand. Be careful, dear. Things are dangerous, and not everyone is who they seem to be. As the day went on, the shadows grew longer across the estate, matching the growing uncertainties inside. Marilyn knew her path was full of challenges, but she was determined. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. The next day, Marilyn woke up early. She knew she had to go back to the police station. She had something very important to share. She had recorded something that could change everything. The thought of helping Michael kept her moving forward. She had seen how sad and desperate he had been, and now she felt like she had a way to help him. As Marilyn walked through the streets with her bag, she thought about everything that had happened. She remembered how Clara had made things hard for her, how she had been unfairly kicked out of the mansion, and how she had tried to stay quiet for so long. But now it was time to speak up. It was time to show the truth, even if it meant risking her own safety. When Marilyn reached the police station, she felt nervous, but also determined. She had something important that Michael needed to see. She walked through the doors of the station and immediately noticed Michael. He was being led out of a room by some officers. When their eyes met, she felt a rush of relief. Seeing him made her heart beat faster, and for a moment she forgot about everything else. Marilyn quickly walked over to him. She didn't waste any time, knowing that every second was important. She looked at Michael, and her voice trembled as she spoke. Mr. Michael, I want to help now, she said. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I have a video that could help prove your innocence. I couldn't do it yesterday because Ma'am Emily was here. Michael looked at her with wide eyes, surprised by her sudden appearance. He had not expected Marilyn to come to the police station again that day, but he could tell by the serious look on her face that she had something very important to say. What exactly do you mean? Michael asked, confused but curious. Marilyn took a deep breath before she continued. I made a recording, she said, her voice full of hope. One night, I heard something strange coming from your room. I didn't know it would be so important, but now I see that it could be the thing that clears your name. Michael felt his heart race. He was still unsure of what Marilyn meant, but the hope in her eyes made him feel that maybe, just maybe, she had found something that could help him. What kind of recording? Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marilyn smiled softly. You'll see soon. Just trust me, Mr. Michael. With that, Marilyn turned and walked into the police station, heading straight for the officer in charge. She had to be quick and careful. She knew that this was her chance to change everything. Once inside the officer's office, Marilyn pulled out her phone and took a deep breath. Her fingers were trembling as she unlocked her phone. She had never been more nervous in her life, but she knew she had to show the officer the video she had recorded. She had to prove the truth. When the officer saw the video, his face became serious. He watched carefully as the footage played on the screen. It clearly showed Emily sneaking into Michael's room one night. Marilyn had quietly filmed the scene from outside the door, unaware that it would become such an important piece of evidence later. The officer paused the video and looked at Marilyn. He could see the fear in her eyes, but also the determination. Why didn't you tell anyone about this before? He asked gently. Marilyn took a deep breath and answered. I was scared. I didn't know if anyone would believe me because we are talking about the high and mighty here. But now I know it's time to speak up. I want to help Mr. Michael. He's innocent, And this video can prove it. The officer nodded. He could see how important this was to her, and he also saw the truth in the video. "This is definitely something," he said. "I'll go tell Mr. Michael. You've done the right thing." Marilyn felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She knew that this video could change everything, but she still didn't know what would happen next. She just hoped that it was enough. She left the officer's office and walked over to Michael, who was waiting anxiously. When he saw her, he could see the relief on her face. Marilyn smiled at him, and he knew that something had changed. She had done something important, something that could help him. The officer approached Michael and explained everything to him. He told him about the video and showed him the evidence. Michael's eyes widened as he watched the footage. He finally understood. The video showed Emily sneaking into his room, and it proved that she had been lying all along. Michael was overwhelmed with emotion. Tears filled his eyes as he looked at Marilyn. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You saved me. I don't know how to thank you enough. I don't know what I would have done without you." Marilyn smiled softly and wiped a tear from her cheek. "You don't need to thank me," she said gently. "I just wanted to help you. I wanted the truth to come out." Michael took a deep breath and smiled back at her. "I'll never forget what you've done for me. I don't know how I can ever repay you." The officer nodded and gave Michael a reassuring smile. "We've got the evidence now," he said. "We'll take it from here." Marilyn felt a sense of pride. She had taken a big risk by recording the video, but now she knew it had been worth it. Michael was no longer alone, and he had a chance to prove his innocence. She had done everything she could, and now it was up to the police to handle the rest. As Marilyn left the police station, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had done the right thing, and she felt proud of herself for taking action. She had been scared at first, but now she knew she had made a real difference. She still didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt hopeful. She had helped Michael, and she had done something good, and that was enough for her. The evidence Marilyn had recorded worked, and because of it, Michael was set free. Everything had turned around so quickly, and Marilyn felt both relieved and proud. It felt like a heavy weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Michael was no longer stuck in that police station. The truth had finally come out, and everything was starting to look brighter. The day Michael was released, he was very happy, but also exhausted from all the stress and confusion he had been through. When he was finally told that he could go home, he felt a sense of freedom. He wasn't in trouble anymore, and soon he would be able to get some peace. Marilyn was there waiting for him when he walked out of the police station. She had been there the whole time, standing by him and making sure that the truth was known. When Michael saw her, he smiled, grateful for everything she had done for him. They both left together in one of Michael's cars. The police officers drove behind them in their own cars, making sure everything was safe and under control. Michael had called his driver to meet them and take them back home to his mansion. As they drove, Michael looked at Marilyn and smiled, feeling thankful that she had believed in him when no one else did. The road home felt so much longer than before. There had been so many times when he thought everything was lost, but now he was finally on his way back to his house, back to his life. When they reached Michael's mansion, things were not as quiet as they expected. The press were already there, waiting for Michael to return. Cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions at him as soon as he stepped out of the car. It was clear that everyone had been following the story, and now they wanted to hear Michael's side of things. Michael stood there for a moment, listening to the questions, and then he started to speak. He gave an interview, explaining what had happened and how the truth had come to light. It felt so good for Michael to finally have the chance to tell his story, to clear his name after everything that had happened. He explained about the recording, how Marilyn had helped him, and how Emily had lied to everyone. The reporters were eager to hear more, but Michael had to focus on the important things, like making sure that Emily and Clara would be held accountable for their actions. While Michael was talking to the press, the police officers went inside the mansion. They had also come to arrest Emily. The officers walked straight into the house, and soon they found her. Emily was surprised when she saw the police. She had no idea what was happening, but she knew something was wrong. She tried to defend herself, asking the police officers why they were arresting her. She asked what she had done wrong, but the officers didn't answer. They just took her into custody. Clara was also confused and upset. She didn't understand why the police were there, and when she stepped outside and saw what was happening, she was shocked. She saw Michael standing there with Marilyn and realized that he was free. She had not expected this. Clara walked over to Michael, her face filled with surprise and confusion. How is this possible?" Clara asked, her voice shaking. "How are you free? What happened?" Michael didn't waste any time. He turned to Clara and showed her the recording on his phone. He played the video for her, showing the proof that Emily had been lying, that she had been sneaking into his room and making up false stories. The video clearly showed everything. Clara's face changed as she watched the video. She could see now that she had made a huge mistake. She had believed Emily instead of Michael, and now the truth was right in front of her. Michael looked at her with disappointment in his eyes. "I trusted you, Clara," he said, his voice filled with sadness. "I never did anything wrong, but you didn't believe me. You chose to listen to lies, and now I'm disappointed in you. I thought we were a team, but you let me down." Clara stood there, speechless. She had no words to say. She had nothing to defend herself with. She had failed Michael, and now it was too late to fix things. Emily, still in shock, tried to plead with Michael. She asked him for forgiveness, begging him to understand that she had made a mistake. She said that she never meant for things to go this far, but Michael didn't want to listen to her. He had already made up his mind. He had been through enough pain and suffering, and he was done with Emily and her lies. The police officers took Emily away, and she was driven off to face the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, Clara, who had been watching everything unfold, was left standing there. She was feeling lost and hopeless. She couldn't believe that things had turned out like this. Clara fell to her knees, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on her. She had been so sure of herself, so sure that Michael was guilty. But now, everything had fallen apart. She had lost him, and there was no way to fix it. Michael, however, didn't show any sympathy. He ignored Clara and turned to walk away. He had made his decision. He didn't want anything more to do with her. He had suffered enough, and he was ready to move on with his life. Inside the mansion, things were quiet. The house felt so different now that the truth had come out. Michael, no longer tied to his past with Clara, started to think about his future. He was finally free from the lies and the pain, and he knew what he needed to do next. In the weeks that followed, Michael made a life-changing decision. He filed for divorce from Clara. The relationship had been broken for a long time, and now there was no way to fix it. Michael needed peace, and he couldn't find that with Clara. He needed to start fresh, and that meant moving on. Soon after the divorce was finalized, Michael made another important decision. He asked Marilyn to marry him. Marilyn had been his rock throughout all of this. She had been there when no one else believed in him, and now he wanted to show her how much he appreciated everything she had done. Marilyn, surprised and happy, agreed to marry him. She had always believed in Michael, and now she was going to spend the rest of her life with him. The wedding was simple but beautiful. Michael and Marilyn were married in a small ceremony, surrounded by close friends and family. Michael looked at Marilyn as they exchanged vows, feeling like he had finally found happiness again. After everything he had been through, he was finally at peace. And so, Michael's life began again. He had been through so much pain, but now, with Marilyn by his side, he knew that the future was brighter. Together, they would start a new chapter, free from lies, free from pain, and free to live the life they both deserved.